Ory Okolloh Mwangi is one of Africa's boldest voices in technology, governance, and innovation. A Kenyan lawyer by training, she transformed into technology as a global tech activist whose work continues to shape how technology serves people and not just for profit. In 2006, she co-founded Mzalendo, a platform that opened up Kenya's parliament to citizens and strengthened transparency. A year later, amid Kenya's post-election violence, she co-created Ushahidi, a revolutionary crowdsourcing tool that mapped crisis reports through text messages and Google Maps. What began as a homegrown response soon became a global solution, used in over 20 countries for disaster relief, election monitoring, and humanitarian response. Her leadership in tech went beyond startups. As Google's policy manager for Africa, Ory worked to expand internet access and influence digital policy across the continent. At the Omedia Network, she led investment in civic technology and governance platforms, proving that innovation must go hand in hand with empowerment. Today, Ory is a partner at Recorgnition Africa Ventures, backing the next generation of African innovators. She has also served on the boards of Safaricom, East Africa Breweries, Deloitte Africa, the Adeco Foundation, GSMA Foundation, and even the Thomson Reuters Founders Share Company, where she safeguarded global media trust principles. Globally recognized, she has been named among Forbes' most successful women in Africa, one of Time's 100's most influential people, and celebrated as one of the continent's most powerful women in technology.
But I know what it is to grow up without having money or being able to support family. Yuvin was talking about bellwether signs. The bellwether for whether our family was broke or not was breakfast. You know, when things were good, we had eggs and sausages. When things were bad, we had porridge. And like many African families, my parents could never save because they supported siblings, cousins, their parents, and things were always dicey. Now, when I was born, they realized they had a pretty smart kid, and they didn't want me to go to the neighborhood school, which was free. And they adopted a very interesting approach to education, which was they're going to take me to a school that they can barely afford. So they took me to a private Catholic elementary school, which set the foundation for what ended up being my career. And what happened was because they could afford it, sometimes not, I got kicked out pretty much every term. And that someone would come in with a list of the people who haven't paid school fees, and when they started getting pretty strict, you had to leave until your school fees could be paid. And I remember thinking, why don't these guys just take me to a cheap school? Because as a kid, you're embarrassed and you're sensitive, and everyone knows you guys don't have money. But they kept at it, and I now understand why they did what they did. You talk about corruption. In Kenya, we have an entrance exam going to high school, and there's national schools, which are like the best schools, and provincial schools. My dream school at that time was Kenya High School, national school. I missed the cutoff by 1 point. And I was so despondent, and I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And my father said, okay, listen, let's go and try and talk to the headmistress, and it's just 1 point. Maybe she'll let you in if the slot's still there. So we went to the school, and because we were nobodies, and because we didn't have privilege, and because my father didn't have the right last name, he was treated like dirt. And I sat and listened to the headmistress talk to him, saying, who do you think you are? And you must be joking if you think you can get a slot. And I had gone to school with other girls who were kids of politicians and who had done much, much worse than I did. And they had slots there. And there's nothing worse than seeing your parent being humiliated in front of you, And we left, and I swore to myself, and I was like, I'm never, ever going to have to beg for anything in my life. You know, they called me 2 weeks later, they're like, oh yeah, you can come now, and I told them to stuff it. Final story, and sort of have to speak quickly. Disease. My father, who I've been talking about, died of AIDS in 1999. He never told anyone that he had AIDS. His fear of the stigma was so strong. And I'm pretty much the one who figured it out because I was a nerd. And I was in the States at the time, and they called me. He was very sick the first time he got sick. And he had cryptococcal meningitis. And so I went on to Google cryptococcal meningitis, you know, because the doctors, because of doctor-patient privilege, they couldn't really tell us what was going on. But they're like, you know, this is a long-term thing. And when I went online and I looked at the infectious, read about the disease, I pretty much realized what was going on. The first time he got sick, he recovered, but what happened was that he had to be on medication that at that time, Diflucan, which in the States is used for yeast infections, cost $30 a pill. He had to be on that pill for the rest of his life. So money ran out. He got sick again. And up until that time, he had a friend who used to travel to India and used to import could get him generic version of it. And that kept him going. But the money ran out. He got sick again. He got sick on a Friday. At that time, there was only one bank that had ATMs in Kenya. And we could not get cash. The family couldn't get cash for him to start the treatment until Monday. The hospital put him on a water drip for 3 days. And finally we figured, we were like, okay, we better just try and take him to a public hospital, at least he'll get treated. We'll try to figure out the money situation. And he died when the ambulance was coming to the hospital to take him. And now imagine if, and I could go on and on, imagine if this is all you knew about me. How would you look at me?
Through every stage of our journey, Ory Okolloh has shown that technology is not about code or connectivity alone, but about accountability, access, and creating opportunities for generations to come. On Ladies Talk Tech, we are proud to honor Ory as a pioneer, an investor, and a changemaker, reminding us all that when women lead in tech, societies move forward.